In the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic, we were doctors, warriors, and humans. At Indira Gandhi ESI Hospital, I witnessed a moment that shook me to my core. When science met its limits and humanity became our only refuge, that night my colleague, Dr. Samir, stood beside his brother in law, his mentor, his guiding figure, as he fought for his last breath. It was a night that tested not just our medical knowledge, but everything we believed about love, loss, and what truly matters. It was 2021 at the height of the pandemic. The world outside was chaotic, but inside our ICU, we were caught in a war of our own. The air felt thick with uncertainty as we did everything we could to save lives, fighting against a relentless virus that showed no mercy. We watched as families said goodbye over video calls, unable to hold each other in the final moments. It was a time when science and humanity collided in ways we could never have prepared for. That night, Dr. Samir entered the ICU, his face a mix of exhaustion and fear. His brother-in-law, Mr. Anwar, had just been admitted, and I could see the weight of his worry in his eyes. Anwar wasn't just family, he was Samir's mentor, a guiding light in his life. Anwar had been the one who encouraged Samir to become a doctor. He had stood by him during the toughest times. Now Anwar lay in bed, gasping for air, his life slipping away despite our best efforts. We fought for Anwar like he was our own. We adjusted machines, increased oxygen support, and pushed our science to its limits, hoping and praying for a miracle. But with every passing hour, the situation grew graver. The virus was a force we could not tame, no matter how much we knew. I remember finding Samir in the break or duty room later that night. He was sitting there alone, his head buried in his hands, his shoulder shook with silent sobs. The tears in his eyes spoke louder than his words. I stood at the door for a moment, unsure whether to disturb him or not. But then I heard him whisper, "Nelson, sir, I can't lose him. He's like a father to me. I've saved so many lives, but I can't save him." In that moment, I understood the helplessness of being a doctor in the face of loss. We are trained to save lives, to fight for our patients with everything we have. But sometimes, no matter how hard we try, no matter whatever tools we use, the outcome is out of our hands. I sat beside him, not knowing how to comfort him. What do you say to someone who's watching their world crumble? What do you say to a doctor who has done everything he can, yet still can't save the one person he holds most dear? There were no words that could take away his pain. All I could do was sit with him in silence, offering what little solace I could. We went back to Anwar's side, but the situation didn't improve. His oxygen levels dropped lower and lower, and Samir couldn't bring himself to be in the room during those final moments. He asked me to stay with Anwar. I did. I held his hands as his breath was growing shallower. I whispered, "You are loved. Samir loves you." In those last moments, it wasn't science that mattered. It was love. It was humanity, and it was the bond that connected us all. When Anwar passed, I found Samir standing in the corridor, staring at the floor, broken. He didn't speak for a long time. When he finally looked up, he said quietly, I couldn't even hold his hand. He was my father, my mentor, and I couldn't save him. There are no words for that kind of loss. As a doctor, I had seen deaths many times, but this felt different. This was personal. This was someone I knew, someone I had worked alongside, someone who had shared in the same battle. The powerlessness in Dr. Samir's voice was something I'll never forget. But the next day, Dr. Samir came back to the ICU. His eyes were heavy with grief, his soul battered by loss. But he returned. He stood in front of me and said, I couldn't save him, Nelson sir, but I'll save the next one. That's what he would have wanted me to do. And that, my friend, is what humanity is all about. It is the courage to keep going even when your heart is broken. It's the strength to face the pain and find a way to move forward for the sake of others. Science is an incredible tool. It gives us the ability to save lives, to heal, to mend broken bodies. But what we often forget is that it's humanity that gives science meaning. It is the love, the compassion, the empathy that turns medical knowledge into healing. Without humanity, science is just knowledge. It is what connects us to each other in our most vulnerable moments. Now I ask you to remember this. Science is what we do, but humanity is who we are. And it is humanity that will always be our true purpose. Thank you.